You are listening to the Nightline Sports Network, brought to you by Travis Dever and the Dever team, 386-690-1636.
Welcome to the AAC Report, only on the Nightline Sports Network. I'm Jeff Allen. Thanks so much for listening. Coming up, we will recap Week 2, get you set for Week 3 in the AAC season. And we also talk about our Spotlight Game of the Week, which will feature Houston and Kansas, a future Big 12 matchup. That discussion coming up with my friends from the Scott and Holman Pawdcast in just a little bit. So my voice is still a little raspy from yelling Friday night at UCF's loss to Louisville. The Cardinals win that game 20-14. Temple was a winner over Lafayette 30-14. It was Memphis routing Navy 37-13 in the first conference game of the season. Cincinnati, a blowout winner over Kennesaw State 63-10. Houston, in 2 overtimes, falls to Texas Tech 33-30. East Carolina romped over Old Dominion 39-21. It was Tulsa in a come-from-behind win over Northern Illinois 38-35. Tulane shut out Alcorn State 52-0. South Florida, a big winner over Howard 42-20. And SMU was a resounding winner over Lamar 45-16. This week's games look like this. Cincinnati versus Miami of Ohio, the battle for the victory bell. Noon kick on ESPNU. The all-time series is tied 59-59. There have been 7 ties. The Bearcats won the last meeting a year ago, 49-14, so the winner will get one up in the all-time series. Rutgers at Temple, 2 o'clock on ESPN+. Rutgers leads the all-time series 22-15, and also won last year's meeting 61-14. Tulane at Kansas State, 3 o'clock ESPN+. Tulane has won the only meeting between the two schools, but that was way back in 1988. Campbell at East Carolina, 6 o'clock ESPN+. Campbell leads the all-time series 3-1. But the last meeting, you may remember, October 7th, 1939. Arkansas State and Memphis, 7 o'clock on ESPN+. Memphis leads the all-time series 31-23 with 5 ties. And Memphis won a wild one last year, 55-50. Jacksonville State at Tulsa, 7 o'clock on ESPN+. First meeting ever between those two schools. UCF at Florida Atlantic, 7:30 on CBS Sports Network. The Knights have won all 3 meetings, including the last one back in 2019. South Florida at Florida, 7:30 on SEC Network. The Gators have won both previous meetings and won last year's contest 42-20. SMU at Maryland. That'll be a 7:30 game on FS1. The Terrapins have won both meetings between the schools, and of course the last one way back in 1962. All right, we'll have our friends from the Scott and Holman Podcast join us next to talk about Houston taking on Kansas. That's next when the AAC Report continues after this.
Hey, this is Travis Dever, Kai's Real Estate, the Dever team, New Smyrna Beach. Your source for real estate and everything else, New Smyrna Beach. Proud sponsor of Nightline. Call me anytime at 386-690-1636. That's 386-690-1636. Let me show you my hometown, New Smyrna Beach, UCF's favorite beach. Go Knights and charge on.
An auto accident can change your life forever. At Chad Barr Law, we are raising the bar on what to expect from your personal injury attorney. Hi, I'm Chad Barr, and I want you to know that our entire team is dedicated to providing you with the representation you deserve in your greatest time of need. If you or a loved one have been injured in an auto accident, call 407-599-9036 for a free consultation or visit chadbarlaw.com. At Chad Barr Law, our clients come to us in need and leave as family. Offices, Altamont Springs.
Looking for more out of your Porsche? Look no further than Flat6Motorsports.com. They have the widest selection of aftermarket Porsche parts anywhere in the world. With over 85 product lines and in-depth expertise, Flat6Motorsports.com is your one-stop shop for any Porsche performance needs. Whether you're shopping for intakes, exhausts, suspension, or tuning, they have you covered. Flat6Motorsports.com is the premier Porsche aftermarket specialist. Check them out at Flat6Motorsports.com.
All right, time now to look at our Spotlight Game of the Week as Dustin from the Scott and Holman Podcast joins us, talk about Houston and Kansas. And my first question is, did I miss some news about you guys going to the Big 12 early? You have back-to-back Big 12 games here all of a sudden?
Yeah, no, it's been kind of nice, actually. It's been a little bit fortuitous getting a little bit of the Big 12 preview. And, this is a couple of the teams that, it's going to be a very competitive conference for sure. And I think every team in that conference is going to feel like they can beat every other team in that conference. But certainly, and I think Texas Tech could be building something, but, that's kind of a missed opportunity. The last couple of years, that's the thing that the team hasn't had a winning record in Big 12 play since Mike Leach left. So that's a missed opportunity to not get the win against them. So all of a sudden you've got this pretty legitimate test against what looks like a pretty solid Kansas team at this point. That from the end of last season into the first couple of games of this season looks like they've really got some things figured out under Lance Leipold, a really good coach. I thought was a really fantastic hire for them. So nice little preview, and that's one of the things we've been talking about on our podcast is just treating this whole last season like your dress rehearsal for the Big 12. Find out how ready you are to hit the Big 12 running next year. And football is getting a good test. I got a good test last week, came up a little bit short, getting another good test this week at home.
Yeah, of course, 1-1 the first two games, had to go overtime in both of those affairs. The wild win over UTSA, and of course, you said the loss to Texas Tech last week. So, where do you see the team at after the first two games? Obviously, giving up points is probably not what you'd like to see at this stage.
Yeah, no, I think actually, it does feel like some of the point totals you've seen, I think, have been affected by the two of the three overtimes, and we've seen some positives and some negatives, I think, on both sides of the ball. But the defensive line, the sack avenue, the kind of trademark defenses has been up to everything we hoped from Derek Parrish, just an unbelievable, unblockable machine on the defensive line. The reworked secondary, I think, has been okay. But then I think the biggest, concern, I think, for the first two games has to be the offense just not really clicking the way you hoped it would with a, fifth-year senior quarterback in Clayton Tune. Tune's had under 7 yards per attempt each of the first two games. The teams, ran under 4 yards per. I think without sacks, I think it was exactly evenly 4 yards. A little bit better against Tech after not running the ball well against UTSA. And offensive line kind of being a little iffy here and there with an offensive line that has no seniors on it. So I think definitely there's some big questions about the offense after two games, and even the defense, the side that I would argue has looked a little bit better. Really like the damage that this and the havoc this defensive line is going to create for the rest of the year with as talented and as deep as it is. But definitely, I think some question marks at the other positions haven't been answered. But I like Houston testing itself and kind of testing those areas early. They didn't bring in an FCS team in Rice to open the season. They went on the road and played UTSA and Texas Tech. So I like that Houston has had a couple of tests. Obviously, there's some things that I'd like to see better, but I think if you play two good teams on the road and you go 1-1, you can't be too mad about that. Yeah,
and of course, you brought up Derek Parrish, had a record-setting week. So he broke the conference record, 4.5 sacks, 6.5 tackles for loss. That was pretty amazing. Also, not just only the Defensive Player of the Week, but also the Bronco Nagurski winner for Defensive Player of the Week in the country. So that was an awesome performance.
For sure. Yeah, the amazing thing is that he, if you believe it, the first two deep that came out ahead of the season opener, he was listed as the backup at one of the defensive end positions, despite being, the senior and this unbelievable leader for the team. But when you've got DeAnthony Jones and Nelson Caesar at that position, just a couple of unbelievable talents in their own right, you're going to see Houston rotate all three of those guys at the defensive end position, and to great effect. And I think that's and as well as some of the talented defensive tackles, Chidozie Nwako, Latrell Banks, and the Houston's got in the middle there. It makes it really, really hard for, opposing offensive lines to really focus too hard on Derek Parrish because there's so many other talented pass rushers on that defensive line, which I think, obviously Derek Parrish deserves every credit for the way he's played, but I think it is a testament, and I'm sure he'd be the first to say it to, the rest of that defensive line out there as well. And that's what's, I think, so exciting about that group.
Yeah. Plus, on offense and defense, you want to be wealthy on the line play.
For sure. Yeah. And that's the lesson that Houston has kind of learned, like I said, on the other side this year with, certainly in the UTSA game, having trouble, especially early on, blocking for Clayton Tune, and Dana Holgerson pretty, unabashedly called them out after the game and said they didn't block well for the first 3 quarters, and then he yelled at them, and then they blocked okay the rest of the way. But there's a group that it's a lot of guys, sophomores and juniors, that, 4th year, sophomores, 5th year juniors type of guys, and all guys that have had some playing time but hadn't really, maybe it's kind of guys that, got thrown into the fire too early a couple of times. And now you're like, okay, how is this going to pay off? And it hasn't, it's been a little shaky. There's been moments where you see it work and you feel like it could be getting there. But, I think we've yet to see them really have a game where they just really establish the run effectively in a way that is really impactful on the game, is not just kind of a secondary thing. And the holding the pocket for Clayton Tune has been a little bit inconsistent. So it's a group that Houston needs to see more from. Like I said, a lot of experience, even though no seniors. So, you kind of lose the benefit of having, getting all those sacks on one side of the ball if the other team gets them back on the other side of the ball.
Yeah. And of course, when you see Houston and Kansas on the schedule, your first thought, oh, what a tasty basketball matchup, right?
Right.
So that's the first thing that goes by. But this is looking like a real tasty football matchup. As you mentioned, Lance Leopold, who's had a great success on the lower level, then doing great things at Buffalo. And if you can do great things at Buffalo, that says a lot. And he definitely seems to have Kansas pointed in the upward direction.
Yeah, I thought something that was really impressive before the season that I heard was he said that every player that was on their 2D last year that had eligibility remaining came back, and none of them transferred. And he added a number of, pretty large programs, transfers on the defensive line, or on the defensive side of the ball, where Kansas was, especially bad last year. They got some things figured out with, Jalen Daniels, who is, a really fantastic quarterback that is certainly going to be, I think, the focal point of, the Houston game plan this week. But, I think the big question for them remains, is this influx of transfers on the defense going to be I think it was S&P Plus is like 127th defense in the country last year. Is pretty rough. So they certainly have to be a lot better on that side of the ball. And even in, week 1, we saw them give up 44 points to West Virginia, but kudos to them. They went to overtime and won the game, and they're 2-0, and they got a road win at West Virginia to open conference play. So they have every right to be thrilled with how they're playing. Jalen Daniels is someone that Houston defensive coordinator Doug Belk has raved about. He's someone that defensive Derek Parrish compared him to Lamar Jackson. So definitely going to be a big test for the Cougar defense. But on the other side of the ball, this Houston offense has really struggled to come out in the first half of the first 2 games. This is a defense you need to come out and start scoring points against, because Jalen Daniels is probably going to score some points even against a good Cougar defense playing at TDECU Stadium.
Yeah. And of course, after this week, what do you think the outlook is for the rest of the season if you peeked into your crystal ball?
Oh, man, I'd love to know how Houston does on Saturday, but I feel like if you take another loss, as much as I have every respect for Kansas and what Lance Leopold is doing, and taking a loss at home would be pretty rough. But certainly there is not the strongest schedule in the country the rest of the way. You did get Rice on the schedule, as I made a joke about scheduling Rice earlier. Houston does play Rice after that, and then in conference play they avoid UCF, they avoid Cincinnati. So SMU on the road looks like it's going to be a pretty tough one. The Mustangs have looked pretty good the first couple of weeks, so that could be a tough game for sure. But and then ECU's looks pretty decent as well. But this is win or lose on Saturday, this is still a schedule I think Houston's going to look at the rest of the way and say, yeah, there's a lot of wins left on this schedule. So at that point you just got to kind of hope that the AAC is going to be a bit of ruckus where no one really comes out 8-0 or whatever, and you kind of maybe take a conference loss or 2 and still try to get involved in that conference race. So I'd feel better if I know how Houston does on Saturday, but it certainly is the rest of the way. Like I said, that schedule Houston regardless needs to be picking up some wins against.
Yeah, and of course, when you look at that schedule, you did mention no UCF, no Cincinnati, but of course they will play again in the Big 12, which won't be long from now when you really stop and think about it.
And I was going to say the one thing I forgot to mention was, Dana Holgerson, you look at since he got here, like his record, he's not beaten a ton of good teams. Like the Auburn, win was a really nice one. Beating SMU last year, I thought was a nice win. Not a lot of big wins on the resume, but one thing he hasn't done is lose to bad teams. So, Kansas is not a bad team, but even if Houston loses, I think that, it would be certainly a test of Dana Holgerson's, like I said, record of at least beating the teams that Houston should beat, even if beating the good teams hasn't always been there as often as Cougar fans would have liked.
All right. Well, Dustin, we always thank you for coming on the show. Of course, you and Sam do the Scott Holman Podcast. So please make your shameless plugs for your programming and all the stuff you guys do.
Yeah, for sure. Wherever you get your podcast, you can pretty much search and find us, the Scott and Holman Podcast. We do podcasts with a fun little pun. It's PAWDCAST. So wherever you listen to podcasts, give us a search. We like to talk about not only U of H, but kind of all the rest of the conference, the rest of the country, twice a week at this point, doing, recap episodes and preview episodes. So content coming fast and furious. Check us out there. And we cannot get enough of Twitter. So if you're on Twitter, follow us at SH Podcasts. And again, the same PAWD pun in there.
Awesome. Well, Dustin, always appreciate your insight, and sure we'll talk again during the season and again when we go to the Big 12 report.
Absolutely. Always enjoy talking to you, Jeff. Thanks for having me on.
Kansas and Houston's a 4:00 kick on ESPNU. The Jayhawks lead the all-time series 3-0. The last meeting back in 2005 was between those two schools. Looking at the Player of the Week honors, the Offensive Player of the Week, Davis Brin, the senior quarterback of Tulsa, leading them in their come-from-behind victory over Northern Illinois. A career-high 4 touchdown passes, 19 of 32, 322 yards, and 2 big fourth-quarter drives there. The Defensive Player of the Week, Derek Parrish of Houston, set a pair of AAC records in their 33-30 overtime loss at Texas Tech. 4.5 sacks, 6.5 tackles for loss among his 11 total. His 4.5 sacks broke the old mark of 4 held by East Carolina's Montesi Overton in 2015 and SMU's Justin Waller in 2017, while his 6.5 tackles for loss broke the old record of 6 by Temple's Quincy Roche in 2019. He also had a forced fumble. That outstanding effort also earned him the Bronco Nagurski National Defensive Player of the Week honor for games of the weekend of September the 10th, as selected by the Football Writers Association of America. And the Special Teams Player of the Week, Devon Fox from Temple. He blocked 3 punts, finishing 1 shy of the NCAA single-game record in their 30-14 win against Lafayette. Final news and notes when we come back after this on the AAC Report.
If you haven't figured it out yet, I love Tijuana Flats. I would love them even if they weren't a partner with us on the Nightline Sports Network. They have all kinds of great Tex-Mex food, and it's fresh, by the way. Made to order burritos, tacos, enchiladas, chimichangas, quesadillas, bowls, nachos, and taco salads. And if you haven't tried the queso, you are completely missing out. It is the best queso that I've ever had in my life. Absolutely hands down. And the sauce bar that they have, everything from wild to mild in there. Absolutely awesome, awesome stuff. Not only do I love the food at Tijuana Flats, but I love the company, a UCF-born company. And they give back to the community with the Justin Queso Foundation. So head to your local Tijuana Flats. Tex-Mex for everyone. Hey Jeep Wrangler owners, have you ever sat in your office at work and watched the rain just pour into your Jeep because the weatherman said that there was a 0 chance of rain? Or you put your doors back on because there was a 100% chance and then not a drop of rain fell? Well, there's a company out there that can help take the worry away and give you the peace of mind to be without your doors. The company's called Life Without Doors. They make waterproof rain curtains and dash covers for Wranglers. Life Without Doors is there to help make the decision to leave the doors at home an easy one. Find out more at lifewithoutdoors.com.
Spice up your company with homemade marketing services from Tasty Gravy Creative. Tasty Gravy serves up a menu of budget-friendly marketing, graphic design, and public relations services customized to your specific goals. Co-owned by a UCF graduate, Tasty Gravy can help refresh your brand, strengthen your online presence, or reinforce your company's message. Contact Tasty Gravy for help with your website, social media, marketing, advertising materials, and more. Visit tastygravy.com.
Turning to volleyball, the Offensive Player of the Week is Isabel Theot of Houston. Had an impressive week as Houston went 3-0 against 2 NCAA tournament teams. The Defensive Player of the Week, Marta Picali of Tulsa, as she helped them to an undefeated weekend. Women's soccer, the Offensive Player of the Week, Carson Parker of East Carolina. The Defensive Player of the Week, Kimberly Smith of Memphis. The Goalkeeper of the Week, Kyla Burns of Temple. And the Rookie of the Week, Jordan Frederick of Tulsa. In men's soccer, SMU picked up 3 of the 4 honors. First off, the Offensive Player of the Week is Nut Allender of SMU. His teammate, Cole Johnson, was the Goalkeeper of the Week, and the Rookie of the Week was also a Mustang, Alexander Petraeus. And the Defensive Player of the Week, Memphis's Cam Weston. And that's going to wrap it up for this week's show. As always, follow me on Twitter at JeffAllen_88 or the Nightline Sports Network at UCF_Nightline. This has been the AAC Report, only on the Nightline Sports Network. I'm Jeff Allen. Thanks for listening.